everyone, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. And this week, we are covering AEW, WWE, and ROH programming. But before we get into that, I'm Jamie, one half of your host.
I'm Mark, the other half of your host.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks
most
for
of the
joining
time.
us.
I'm mostly here, so I think I'm like just under 50% here. I'm missing like 5% today, but I'm mostly here.
I'll take 45.
Yeah. Well, it's a good day when I'm at least over 40.
And it's been a great week for wrestling.
It's been a great week for women's wrestling.
Really can't
Let's be
complain.
honest.
Yeah, let's be honest here. Let's just go ahead and open up the show and talk a little bit about the ROH pay-per-view that just happened. That was
Not
Death Before
Supercard of
Dishonor.
Honor. It was
No.
not Supercard of Honor.
I don't know why they do that because, you know, Supercard of Honor, Death Before Dishonor.
Well, it kind of
Ring
goes.
of Honor,
It goes with the Ring of Honor name, but you know, if people like me actually paid half a bit of attention and didn't go a whole podcast and said Supercard of Honor like 15 times last week, then you know.
I didn't fight you about it, so.
I know we didn't fact check. It's hard to fact check live on recording,
especially when you have two people talking and there's not just like a third person like the Joe Rogan podcast.
I keep
just
throwing
double-check.
Jade Cott's name out there. He's supposed to be our fact checker. He just never shows up for work.
I don't think that he wants to just sit here and fact check for us for.
Well, I could go into many a story of things I didn't want to sit there while he was doing stuff.
Let's not. How about that? Let's not. If you could be so
Jade.
kind, because you don't have it up here, and show me the card for the ROH pay-per-view, that would be fantastic. Well, so this just happened this past Friday.
Yes.
I love a good Friday pay-per-view just to, you know, have it on and get it over with.
Well, not just that, but just to fuck up the entire Friday because not only do we have Death Before Dishonor, we had SmackDown and Rampage.
Right.
So that was an absolute blunder, and I ended up getting tired halfway through.
Yeah, and then you left me.
Death Before Dishonor. I ended up falling asleep before Pac and Claudio Castagnoli got into the ring, or as they got into the ring. So
as weird as
I had
it is,
a lot to catch up Saturday morning.
We were watching the pay-per-view, and then SmackDown was on. So then we had to watch SmackDown and the pay-per-view.
We were dual screening.
Rampage was on afterwards. So then I'm watching, you know, the Royal Rampage as, you know,
which is
the
pure
end
chaos.
of the pay-per-view is happening. So I tried my best to watch it. I ended up not being able to accomplish everything and had to go back and watch a lot of it because it was just insane. And, you know, for us personally, of course, we've got the podcast, but I felt like I couldn't just miss the other things that were going on.
Right.
And not have any idea. So it was just kind of back and forth. It was kind of fun.
There's a lot of catching up to do this weekend
a little
with
chaotic.
wrestling. Because then, of course, we had Saturday, we had Collision, so there was a shitload of things that had to be caught up on.
Right.
But we are talking first Ring of Honor.
But I digress.
Right. as we tend to do on this podcast, we are talking Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor.
Yes.
No, Death Before Dishonor. I did it again already.
There you go.
At least
honestly,
I'm consistent with my fuck-ups.
From beginning to end, it was a fantastic program.
Yes.
ROH has been putting on absolute bangers when it comes to pay-per-view. I know a lot of people complain that they don't really necessarily want to watch the weekly show. I can kind of understand it. It's a little bit difficult to throw in another show on top of everything else, but the programming is great on the show.
Watch
ROH.com is where you can see everything.
Don't ever say that Ring of Honor is lacking in their talent in matches.
Absolutely not.
I can see where a lot of people have an issue with it because there's not a lot of story going on Ring of Honor, but I don't think that's the focus of Ring of Honor. But
there is a lot too.
I mean, there is, but the focus isn't on the storyline, and I think that's a lot of product of it. Kind of not being a new promotion, but being a newly televised weekly promotion.
Sure, if people are unfamiliar with it and watch AEW and didn't watch ROH, it's probably a little bit difficult to digest.
Even AEW diehards that got into Ring of Honor after Tony re-debuted, watch ROH.com. To where there's a lot of people that people are still learning about, and we're learning about old rivalries between people. They're developing new ones. They're bringing new people into Ring of Honor. They're kind of like making it into AEW's NXT almost,
Yeah, and it's a cross-promotional thing, so you never really know who you're going to see. And I think one fun example of ROH and AEW kind of crossing over and having a great match for this pay-per-view was we had a four-way for the ROH World Tag Team Championship, and that was between Aussie Open.
Yep.
This was a tough one to pick.
Which was kind of a surprise because, I mean, the other three are already known.
Sure.
Mark Davis has been out for a couple months now with an injury.
Yeah,
so
had to have some
nice
knee
to know that they were
surgery.
coming
So
back.
I saw a couple weeks ago that he was in the gym, so I was just stoked he was in the gym. So when they announced that he was in the match, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is fantastic. So we had Aussie Open, the Lucha Bros, who are the champions, the Kingdom, and Best Friends all went head-to-head to see who was going to be the next ROH World Tag Team Champions.
And it was a hell of a match. Like the problem with matches of this magnitude with 4 tag teams in it is it's very difficult for everybody to get their spotlight and for it to not to feel like one of those matches where it's okay, you hit your spot and then the next person hits a spot and the next person hits a spot and the next person hits a spot.
And that's okay for a little bit, but for, what did this end up being, about 17 minutes? You can't do that for 17 minutes where it's just one at a time coming in the ring and kind of having a moment.
But they played into a lot of their strengths. They played into the Lucha Brothers have a knack for just being really consistent in tag team wrestling.
Of course.
Just really good with, not only doing their moves, and I mean they do them flawlessly like they always do, but also to get the moves, to get, hit and to take and sell the moves and put the other tag teams over.
Right.
And I thought this was going to go to the Kingdom. I was like, okay, it's an ROH staple. They've been around there. I believe it was you told me it was Matt Taven's the Triple Crown champion in ROH.
Right,
like,
they're
got
huge staples in ROH, and I thought that was what it was going to happen here, at least personally.
Yeah, and even Lucha Brothers, I was like, okay, I could see the Lucha Brothers, because originally I had heard about this match and it was supposed to be only the Lucha Brothers versus the Kingdom. That was the only two that was, Fightful reported that's what the main match was going to be.
Which would have been great in itself.
And I saw that. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I think it was the day of we started looking at, to get our notes together for the podcast and just to see what was going on.
And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning the day before they announced it, because I went to send it to you and you were like, I saw that this morning.
That's right. And it
really
turned into a 4-way.
minute.
And it was one of the better matches. We're going to be talking about 3 matches on this pay-per-view, but it was
not that there's a bad match on the card.
No, not at all. But these were the 3 that were the standout of the night.
Yeah, for us personally.
Aussie Open ends up getting the belts, and they are your new ROH Tag Champions, which I was, honest to God, wasn't expecting to go in that direction.
No, because it's just, like you said, we just recently found out that they got signed to AEW. Mm-hmm. Mark was injured when they announced that they got signed for AEW.
Yep, and Kyle Fletcher's been doing kind of some singles stuff just to keep the wheels turning of the United Empire.
Yeah.
So, great, awesome. I'm absolutely loving
shocked.
it. We saw them debut in ROH when we were down for the first 2 episodes that they recorded in Orlando.
Yeah, which again was great.
They came out as a surprise. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, they don't tell you. We didn't ever get to see when we went to ROH the 3 shows we saw.
The only match they ended up telling us was the first match between Athena and Willow, which I'll bring it up. We might as well start. We'll go into that. The main event of the night. Jesus Christ, what a match!
Well, before you can even say anything about the actual match itself, this is a record-making match in itself, that there have never been a women's main event as an ROH pay-per-view.
Right, and it's rare to see a women's main event in a pay-per-view in general, let alone in ROH being the first one. So congratulations to these 2 women.
And if you watch the media scrum afterwards, Tony Khan said that after he saw that first match between Athena and Willow at that ROH taping that we were at, he said that he knew from then that he wanted to see that rubber match kind of happen between them. So he had been planning this for a while, and if you saw the match in ROH, my poor girl Willow got her ass whooped.
She did. We were super excited for that match. She actually wrestled Lady Frost earlier in the night. You're talking about the recordings for ROH. And then, she got her ass handed to her by Athena. It was a great match, but really, set the precedence as to how hard Willow was going to have to up her game to get to Athena's level.
Right, which didn't seem like it was at any capacity at that first match.
No, and that was right after she won the NJPW Strong title, if I remember right.
No. It was way, way, way before. Yep.
Either way, she's destined to have gold around her waist.
Well, absolutely.
Unfortunately, she didn't pull it off this time, so Willow did not win. Athena ended up retaining, which I think was the right way to go.
It was tough. After
go ahead.
Just recently seeing Willow pick up that win for the Owen Hart Cup tournament.
Right.
And Athena's face and her reaction as to somebody actually beat me. And I think she's 32-0.
It's something
in
ridiculous.
ROH, if I'm not mistaken, is
Right.
what Tony said. So, it was tough. They set up like the WWE like special treatment when the WWE title changes hands. A lot of time, Vince will fly in the parents or the wife and put them in the front row and give them this big grand entrance and really push it. They really pushed it like she might get it. So I can't lie, when it got to the end and that wasn't the case and she wasn't able to pick up the win, it was a little bit difficult for me. And as Mark said, he was sleeping, so I had to process this entire match by myself. I really did. It's weird. Like, sometimes wrestling will like move me in a way that I legitimately was almost brought to a tear. Like, it hit me. I was like, I can't believe that Athena actually won after Willow kicked from that O face. I was like, that's it. Like, there's absolutely no way. So they made her look fantastic, but after everything was said and done, I turned off both the shows and I processed it for about 10 minutes.
You let your personal feelings go.
Yeah, I let all that go to the side.
Logic started setting in.
Yeah, logic set in, and I was like, this was the right move.
It really is.
She's indestructible, Athena. She's indestructible. I feel like she was one of those people that was brought over from WWE. It didn't work out for her over there.
Right.
I didn't really know a lot about her before she came over, but she came over to AEW, and I've loved her from the second that she walked in. Her confidence and her way of wrestling, and she knows how to hype a crowd. She knows how to sell a character. She makes everybody she works with look so good.
But it honestly, it didn't feel like she didn't get the traction in AEW when she first came in. Like, when she first came, they're like, oh my God, can't believe, Ember Moon has moved from, she left or got fired from WWE. Now she's AEW.
Right, her contract ended.
That's right. Yeah, she went to,
because they wanted her to stay and she said no.
But it didn't feel like she got a good hold in the AEW crowd. She didn't get she got a good amount of support, but it didn't feel like the crowd that didn't know who she was behind her 100%.
Right. And the women's division still had a lot to grow then, too. They still do, but then
I feel
it was significantly smaller.
But I feel like doing what they've done with her, they've moved her back into ROH. Again, using the similarity of NXT to ROH to WWE to AEW, you know what I mean? They moved them back into the developmental territory to where she's a top dog in ROH, to where she can be the top female performer of ROH and build up that confidence and build up that namesake and build up that popularity and build up the steam that she needs, so that when she finally drops this ROH women's title to whomever is worthy enough to get it and to defeat her, you now have the capability of, you can keep her in ROH and keep her as a strong force in ROH, but you now have developed her into a much bigger force. She's got a lot of wins under her belt under a Tony Khan product. You can now move her back into the AEW roster and have her feud with the Britt Bakers, and feud with the Tony Storms, and feud with, for the AEW Women's Championship. You know what I mean? And it
has some legitimacy behind
it. You'll be able to pull that steam right out of ROH and go right into AEW, because this is the
first woman to win a women's main event match in ROH.
Right,
Athena done. Like, it's forever. Just
one of the most prolific women's champions of our modern time in ROH.
Exactly. So yeah, you can keep her there after that win. Whoever she passes that torch on to eventually, is going to have to be one of the best out there, or just get lucky.
Right.
So I'm not mad with the final decision. I think it was a really good decision to keep her as the forever champion, as she puts that moniker on it.
I love it.
They asked her in the media scrum, like, who do you think it can step up? And she said, it's just a matter of who will step up.
Kind of
I'll fight anybody in Stardom. And I'm kind of like, maybe that's where it's at, because when I sit there and think about who could possibly come into the ring with Athena and take that belt,
especially right now in ROH.
Yeah, I don't think there is anybody.
Mercedes Martinez, maybe, but that's
where she won it from.
I know she's had her run, and not that she's keep her away from the limelight for a minute. She had the belt for a hot minute, do whatever. I think they're doing great with her. I think that at least one more pay-per-view cycle, with the belt, and then give it to somebody. I'm thinking,
and she defends it every week, which is great.
Maria Kanellis.
I mean, she did shout out Maria Kanellis and say thank you to her for the belt.
Another thing,
belt,
another thing to point out from that match is they did a lot of callbacks to a lot of women wrestlers. I had a couple of them written down, but
They
of course,
did Daphne.
They had Daphne. They had Sarah Del Sol. She was they did a couple
Shouted
of her
out
moves.
cheerleader Melissa.
A lot of women wrestlers that went through the past 15 years that wasn't the best for a lot of women wrestlers. It was a little bit rough patch because you had the Me movement, you had the kind of like women being more empowered in what they are viewed as in the wrestling world instead of just a pair of legs and a pair of tits.
Right.
It's been a transitional period for women over the past 15 years, and of course there's still a long ways to go. But I think that right there it goes to show how important that main event of ROH was, to have not only 2 females but 2 minority females being on the main event. And we don't ever try to get into the politics here on Coffee and Wrestling. We obviously all have our own political beliefs, and I know some of the people on Twitter that follow us might not exactly line up with our political beliefs. Everybody's got everybody, but it's just good to see that women are being showcased for their talents and how good they can be.
That they had the best rivalry, they had the best match, and they got exactly what they deserved. And Tony Khan saw something in that, and kudos to him for being able to see that so long ago that he knew that this was going to come down to a rubber match. Absolutely incredible. All right, and as I said before, every single match on this card was absolutely fantastic. You had Samoa Joe and Dalton Castle, always entertaining. Dalton Castle might be the most entertaining person
Dalton Castle
on the
could
planet.
have a shitty match and I'd still be entertained.
Absolutely love him. That was a great match. Shibata versus Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia was passing out and was still doing his dance moves. Absolute fucking gem.
And then the Shibata,
love him.
The Shibata post-match media scrum
doing the
comments, translation with Google fucking Translate was amazing.
He said, "I'll learn better English for next time." Claudio Castagnoli taking on Pac. These two are so goddamn strong. Claudio yeeted Pac into the tables. I don't even know how Mark didn't wake up. I was yelling. So please take the time, go back, watch all of them if you haven't already. If you watched them, watch them again, because you'll miss. There's an unbelievable amount of stuff that you missed. But I feel like we would be doing everybody a disservice if we didn't take a few minutes to talk about what ended up being one of my favorite matches that I really wasn't
I didn't want
thinking
to
was going to be one of my favorites. Now, unpopular opinion, perhaps. Mark's not a big fan of Vincent.
Listen, all right. Give me hold on. What time we at? We're at 1750. That means I got until 1950.
You got 2 whole minutes to talk about how you don't like Vincent.
I could go for a whole podcast about how much I don't like
45 seconds.
Vincent.
We're trying to stay positive.
Vincent, okay. Positive, he's got a great gimmick. He has an absolute hold on fans for people that look at him and go, "Oh, he's real weird.
Who doesn't
he's
love
culty.
a good cult?
He's tattooed. He's got dreads. He wears all white. He sings, hey,
Dutch.
man, you digging it, man? You feeling it, man?" I love Dutch. I think Dutch is a great character. I think, and I've said this before, I think that the gimmick that they have going with this culty-ass group is amazing. I think it's got a lot of good storytelling elements, with Stu Grayson now coming over and becoming a part of them.
And he wore all white
away
for it.
from
That was
Dark
cool.
Order, who's already spoopy and evil, so you've taken from one evil group to another evil group that's pretending they're not an evil group. I like it. It's a good gimmick. I'm not knocking the amount of theater that these guys put into it, because the commitment they put into their characters. Vincent,
I feel like you could see Vincent on the street
dude.
and he would still be snapping his fingers like, "Hey, man."
I can't stand him. I cannot stand it. Hey, he sounds like, if you've ever listened to the last podcast on the left, go on and listen to their Marilyn Manson, their Charles Manson episodes. He sounds like what Henry makes fun of Charles Manson. "Hey, man, you want to see some shit, man? You feeling it, man? Do you know what it's like, man?" The snapping and the fucking every time he's
Let's
moving.
get in our dune buggies, man.
Man, I'm gonna fucking dune buggy up his ass. It kills me. Maybe it's because I grew up loving Rob Zombie and having that knack in the back of my head, I can't get all the tattoos and have dreads and be a white guy and listen to rock and roll music, because everybody's gonna look at me and be like, "You're Rob Zombie."
Yeah. Well, when we were at the ROH tapings and he was there, everybody was yelling, "Hey, he just looks like Rob Zombie." So
fucking
I
named
almost
Rob
felt
Zombie.
bad. I felt bad because the
God.
gimmick's good, but it's just a hard
The
sell. At
gimmick's
least
good,
for
but
Mark.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't know if it's one of those things I'm supposed to hate it, or I'm supposed to like it and I hate it, but I hate it.
Well, I mean, if it's a heel faction, if you hate it, regardless of whether you like to hate it or just hate it.
Do you hate it?
I don't hate it.
You've never given me your opinion. Like when Vincent,
because it makes me laugh so hard. I actually really like it.
There it is. See, I'm just a stingy old man who doesn't know any better.
And I grew up a huge Rob Zombie fan too. Like I love his movies. I loved his music. Like
I just can't get behind this guy. I can't.
I like it. I think Dutch is so good that he overcompensates for me. That he's the bigger part.
I feel like Dutch is going to rip
for
somebody in half every time he comes out. Like he looks
His
like that
moves
guy.
are stellar.
He's wearing all white. He's got that. I mean, just that
He's
bear
got
strength.
like that, like John Wayne Gacy, like creepy.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of John Goodman in Oh Brother Where Art Thou.
Oh yeah. And the shirt's too tight. You almost don't fit. Like
we're going on completely tangents here. I don't know if anybody knows this. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you're a halfway smart person. I mean, you married me. That doesn't bode well for you. But that whole Oh Brother Where Art Thou, that is actually a retelling
I
of
did know
the
this.
Odyssey.
The Odyssey, yes.
And if you haven't read the Odyssey, it means you haven't gone through high school English yet, and you really should, because it's a really good book. And John Goodman's actually supposed to be the Cyclops that when he gets blinded is yelling, "Nobody blinded me." And if you actually go back and watch it, it's a great thing.
Great movie.
But that's who he really reminds me of. Is
I can
John
see
Goodman
that. Okay, yeah, he's got that like religious. Like I said, too tight of a T-shirt. Way
too strong for his own good.
Like awkward smile where like you can't feel comfortable around him.
It's the greatest. It's such a good character.
He lives it. Like I really do feel like I said, you'd see these guys on the street and they're still wearing the same thing, doing the same thing, walking around Walmart, snapping their fingers, grabbing hamburger meat.
But these three guys with Stu Grayson put on one of the best matches of the night. It was a match without honor, which is basically anything goes.
No rules.
And Evil Uno had a vendetta. I mean, all of Dark Order had a vendetta.
Before we even start, the guys came out. Alex Reynolds and John Silver came out in their Dark Order masks, which was a callback to how
when they used to all just
the original Dark Order with the masks and the names and everything like that. So they came out in the masks, and like you said, it was one of those things where the whole entire match you were just waiting for that time with Evil Uno and Stu Grayson to lock up in a sense. And what I liked was they didn't make us wait too long for it.
No, they didn't at all. And there's a lot of story there. We could sit here and talk your ear off all day about how much story there really is here between the two of them. They've got a school together. They've known each other for 20 years.
They said, they've been wrestling together 20 years.
They're best friends. It's so to see this finally come to fruition, to have them being in opposite factions, especially since Stu Grayson ended up leaving AEW at the end of his contract a little bit ago, and then ended up recently coming back. So
I love this new Stu. I love what they did with him, and not just threw him back into the Dark Order. They actually did something different and really developed the story that is so deep. Like you said before, there's not a lot of storyline, but this one is so deep with the Dark Order and Stu.
And not just that, like it shows a side of Evil Uno that we're not normally privy to see. You know, he's the cool, calm, collective, whether you believe he's this larger than normal man with this mask that completely covers up every time he comes out, is this kind of suave guy. But he comes out in his suits and he talks very eloquently.
Oh, he's so great on the mic.
Doesn't really lose his cool. And when he does, it's very quick, and it's over. But it showcased how brutal Evil Uno can be and how much he can put aside his own safety and sanity to really run his point home, and he really did that with Stu Grayson.
And you talk about Evil Uno being brutal, but it's kind of crazy because we just came off of, and we'll talk about this for sure, Blood and Guts. We just came off of Blood and Guts. The blood and the violence from that and the guts was absolutely insane, and that happened just a few days before this Fight Without Honor match happened.
Right.
And they brought out some similar things. They had
tables,
tacks,
ladders, chairs, tacks,
and Legos.
One of the only other time I've ever seen anybody pull out, everybody's seen Legos. Everybody's seen the Legos from time to time. It's kind of one of those tropes. It's just, there's
everybody
nothing
knows.
Worse, nothing worse than stepping on a Lego.
Even Ian and Capri said, if you're a parent, there's nothing worse,
But as a parent, yes, and it's the most common thing is Legos, because every parent usually has a child that goes through, even if it's a little girl, a little boy, it doesn't matter. Everybody goes through a period where they have like some Legos and they step on them.
And Lego storage sucks.
But the only other time I've ever seen like a good use of a foreign object that was like tacks or like Legos.
God, I hope I know what you're saying.
Oh, you know exactly what I'm saying.
AEW did it right.
Was Brandon Cutler and
Pretty Peter
Avalon had that feud, and Brandon Cutler was like the D&D guy, and he came out and dumped out a bag of dice.
All the three of them with Leva Bates. They were all. She was the librarian,
but he comes out and he dumps a bag of Dungeons and Dragons dice, and if you don't know,
D4s, D20s,
use multi sided dice, including a D4, which basically is just a triangle, and it's the worst one. And they did spots on that, so the Lego is always a good thing. I love the like, because the crowd reaction with Legos is oh my god, it's worse than tax.
It's just so funny because you have such like this, everybody's bleeding. Evil Uno's mask is ripped all the way back,
so
just
much
like Penta.
Testosterone is pumping in this ring.
It was very Penta reminiscent to how he always rips his mask, and then you have Legos, which is such an adolescent type of
bright,
thing, with blood,
colorful, angular. It's so good. So good. But this match, absolutely wonderful. I know we're not done with this rivalry between the Dark Order and what do they call themselves? The Righteous. The fucking Rob Zombie cover band.
This is definitely not over, but I was really surprised to see Dark Order get the win and come out so brutal. They were had so much vengeance.
I think they need a resurgence. They need to have,
I'm telling you,
comeuppance of we're the Dark Order. We weren't when they first showed up. They were no force to be reckoned with.
No.
I mean, granted, Brody Lee brought a lot to the faction, but
a lot. And hear me out. You will never replace Brody Lee. He's an absolute legend for sure. You'll never replace him. But hear me out. I have an idea, and I think I know what's missing. Evil Uno is a fantastic member of the Dark Order.
Okay,
but he's not the main person in Dark Order. That's where we're missing. We're missing the person to run the show. And that person is Maki Ito.
Maki Ito, yeah. I mean, did she... Oh, that's right. She did say she was going to join, but then it was...
Yeah, there was a BTE episode, and
Maki Ito.
John Silver got all excited, and he was like, hey, obviously Hangman left us. I found somebody who's going to join us, and she's never going to leave. And it was Maki Ito, and they got all excited, and she said, I'm leaving immediately. And they're like, no. But now she says
they kept asking, do you want to join? And she goes, hi. And they're like, hello. Like, do you want to join the Dark Order? Hi. Hi, we've met. We've been talking for 20 minutes. Do you want to? It's great. I love the Dark Order.
It's so good. So she says she wants to work for AEW. I mean, this is a great opportunity. And I have to take this moment to say that Matt Cardona has recently won a championship belt.
He's
in
the DDT Pro, which fuck Matt Cardona. I'm gonna step all over your story.
Fucking love
Matt Cardona and his stupid fucking belt. Chris Brooks, baby.
Well, yeah, Chris Brooks. Listen.
The king of professional wrestling.
Well, he's the king of DDT.
He's the king of everything.
But Matt Cardona just won a belt as well as our boy Chris Brooks. Shout out, Death by Roll Up.
It's a mid card belt. Cardona.
But Matt Cardona wore his one half of the women's tag team championship belt.
Chelsea Green's
because
belt.
he said, I'm married to Chelsea Green, therefore everything that she has, I have one half of.
He is one half of the tag team of the WWE women's tag team champions.
He wore it to the DDT match, and then I guess somehow afterwards Maki Ito challenged him to that DDT title, making it what commentary said is the first intergender
DDT Pro match. DDT Pro, I've been subscribed to DDT Pro for like 2 months, and I have yet to fire it up. I just keep up with Chris Brooks, but I really need to like catch up with that.
It's so good.
Wrestling's so good. I love wrestling. Let's see well, if we're gonna talk about, and we're gonna roll into WWE with that. Like, if you didn't know, Chelsea Green and
Sonya Deville
are your new women's tag team champions, and we don't normally look at the negative of this stuff, and it's going to be a really weird transition to WWE, but what an awful way for them to lose those belts.
And I was actually going to ask you what you thought about, what do you think about Sonya and Chelsea Green having the belts?
I don't disagree with the decision.
Because I love it too.
That's not my issue with the belt loss.
Stellar tag team in ring and out.
They have great potential to be a women's tag team that could really rub a lot of people the wrong way.
Right.
And I think that's good. I think the women's division, let alone their very lackluster tag team division, because their tag belts have changed, was it 5 different times since February?
Right.
So we're talking, what, a 5-month period? So that means once every month at least.
And not in the best ways possible.
And yeah, 2 of them have been lost because of injury, even though we've had plenty of times where injuries, we've replaced people with injuries. We've dropped it because of injuries. And then we've had matches where they wrestled with injuries.
But that's what happened here. And what was it? Was it SmackDown or Raw?
I believe it was SmackDown.
They had
fact check on
a WWE
Jade,
Women's Tag Team Championship match, and it was scheduled for a while between Sonya and Chelsea Green.
Oh, I love the way they announce it.
And then obviously Liv and Raquel. So beforehand, and I don't mind this, they had Mommy Rhea Ripley attack Raquel. Okay, that makes sense. There's some NXT, storyline with that.
Right, they've had a rivalry, plus there's rumors that we might see that at SummerSlam.
And I'm okay with that. I think that would be a great match. But what they did here was they had Rhea barely attack Raquel. Raquel gets brought to the back. Of course, everybody, hey, what does the medical team have to say about Raquel? The not medical guy, definitely not a medical guy, said that
just guy in a black collar T-shirt with a WWE logo on it.
He's definitely an indie wrestler, but said that she's cleared, she's okay, but I highly recommend that she not wrestle.
He not only recommended, but I hope you don't want to wrestle tonight.
So she's like, no, we can't do this. We just did this with Liv. I'm going to go out there. And the rating was just all over the wall. The second that Rhea attacked her, I knew exactly what was going to go down. This has happened so many times. I just feel like you could have done this.
Like if they were building up something between Raquel and Rhea, I feel like you could have done this a little bit better. I feel like you could have given them that match, put Liv in a storyline to where she wouldn't be able to compete, or just have them feuding with.
But why'd you just give them the belts?
But that's what I mean. Have her feud with Rhea, and then have them give them the belts after she gets her ass whooped by Rhea at SummerSlam.
Right.
Just absolutely hand it to her, because there's no way they're going to give her the belt. They just have Rhea hand her ass to her, make her look good, put her in a pay-per-view, put her over,
but
just have her
then deal
beat
with the
shit out of her. She's got a bum knee, her elbows hurt, her shoulders been out of place, her neck hurts, and they go into a tag team championship against Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green, and they do what they do best, and they carry their way into winning the championship. It gives Raquel looks like she actually had an unfortunate time losing the belts, as opposed to she got kicked in the knee. Now she's going to be injured for a match, and then now in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're going to see her back feuding with Rhea Ripley at 100%. Right? Like what do we do? Like
over a what? Not even a sprain.
Yeah.
Even
though the doctor said, she's cleared.
Right.
So why are we selling it like she's injured?
I didn't like that part. I do like the transfer of the tag team champions. I don't understand, again, why you even bothered to give it to Liv and Raquel, just to turn around a couple weeks later and just drop it off on somebody else.
Honestly, I think it's strictly just to rush the match to the SummerSlam program.
It could be. Just unfortunate. And what was really sad was when Liv and Raquel came out, that, again, was written all over their face. It was so obvious they were about to lose. Right. They looked so
they really did. They looked
off.
Very angry. They didn't even look like they were in character. Liv had the biggest stink face on her. You could tell Raquel was trying to sell the injury, but was just not very happy. I mean, and even if another thing, if we don't see this match come to fruition come SummerSlam, that means we have another month until their next pay-per-view, premium live event. Eat my ass. That means you have a whole month. You're not telling me you could have done that sometime within that month. The exact same order of events. Have post SummerSlam, have Raquel being in a backstage segment with Rhea. She attacks or loses it. You build it up to the next pay-per-view. Like, why did it have to happen so quickly? It just, and especially with the way they lost the titles previously. Liv Morgan got hurt. And instead
they made them drop it.
They made them drop it and had her recompete with another person, Shotzi, in a fatal 4-way for her titles that they never lost. And it just makes them look so terribly weak. And
she couldn't have at least won it with Shotzi temporarily until Liv came back or something. they're fumbling, and they've been fumbling with these tag team championship belts ever since Sasha and Naomi left.
Oh yeah, it's been cursed. It's superstitions in wrestling, but a lot of people say that they've absolutely cursed it since they've done that, because ever since, like you said, they've walked out and said, you're not doing the women's tag titles or the women's division enough. They were right, and it still stays true to this day. And it's just so unfortunate that we're not seeing all of these women actually having a chance in tag team wrestling, even though we've had decent tag teams in NXT get churned into the system and then just fall flat.
And they have 2 that just came up from NXT. Where have they been?
They've been getting their ass whooped.
Gone, but they're not there.
Well, yeah.
It's really odd that they take the time to put 2 random women wrestlers together and just say, start a tag team, and AEW is just as bad. It's women's wrestling. Yeah,
AEW didn't even have the tag titles.
We'll take Nyla and we'll take Marina. We'll take Britt Baker and we'll take Janie. We're just going to throw people together and they're going to have a tag team match. It's going to be the main event, and it just... I hope this is the change. I feel very positive about
I feel like
Sonya
you could. I feel like with these 2, you can really move the women's tag titles to mean something.
Yeah,
again.
Some legitimacy behind it, because the NXT women's tag teams are gone.
This is the only women's tag team they have in WWE right now.
This is the only thing other than Asuka and Rhea Ripley that are showcasing women's wrestling in WWE. No pressure, right?
So speaking of SummerSlam, it is WWE's mid-season, their second WrestleMania.
I thought you were going to say it was their mid-premium live event.
Depending on what the card is, yes, it could be. But it's, they really hyped that one up. This is they're halfway through. I don't know why, but for some reason it's WrestleMania and SummerSlam are the 2 big ones. I never understood it. But we've got SummerSlam in Detroit. We already know about Cody and Brock, Bianca, Flair, and Asuka, Seth and Finn, and of course we have the tribal combat between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. I feel like it's just been regurgitated week after week after week of all 4 of these matches. There's not much to say about Cody and Brock.
We seen it,
We seen it. We're going to see it again. We've got Bianca, Flair, and Asuka. We also got Io Sky is going to be rolling around with the Money in the Bank briefcase.
I think that's going to be a fun match.
We had talked about that on our previous podcast, and that's kind of where we thought the direction was going to go. I think it's going to be a great match. Honestly, even the Cody and Brock Lesnar, it is their rubber match. It is, probably going to be the best out of the 3 of them. Cody's pretending to have a broken arm, I think, again.
I don't know.
Seth versus Finn with Damian in the lurches with the Money in the Bank.
He swears he won't cash it in.
I have some interest in this match as well, just because I want to see where the storyline's going. And
and I've said this to you before, it could always be an interesting thing, too. He swears he won't cash it in, but Seth Rollins did this a couple of years ago where he cashed it in and made it a 3-way between Brock, Roman Reigns, and Seth. Right. So that could be something that could happen.
But I feel like that'd still be a betrayal to Finn Balor.
Of course, it's a betrayal. I'm just saying.
Plus, I feel like
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I feel like
he'd
be silly. I think it'd be silly to set up a 3-way match as opposed to cashing in on the tired winner of the match.
Oh, of course, but if you've watched that fantastic match and that fantastic cash in that I'm telling you about with Seth Rollins, you can do it in the right way, because Roman Reigns actually took out Brock and then Seth got the pin. So really, Seth was just a bystander and ended up winning the championship from him, which is funny. But anything can happen with this, and I hope they do something to make it a little bit more interesting.
We've also got Roman and Jey Uso in tribal combat, which is just basically no disqualifications match, just with a little bit of added asterisk on it, because they're both part of the I'm going to say this horribly wrong, the Anoa'i family. That's going to be interesting, just because the bloodline has been prominent over pro wrestling. The whole storyline has been all over. Everybody's been watching it. It's been probably one of the more interesting things WWE's been done in a while. I'm not super excited for this. I just feel like we've done this very similar a lot.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because a few months ago I also said that I thought this was going to go down where Jay was going to be the one to be facing Roman. And unfortunately, I don't think there's as much steam behind it as there normally is. They spent a lot of time showing previews of things that have happened in the past with the bloodline rather than furthering the story.
Both on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah,
huge
having
chunks of time.
Jimmy in the hospital, I think that made it a little bit difficult. I don't know if he's dealing with something on his own end, and that's why he hasn't been there. I really don't know the story of that, but it just being Jay with Roman and Solo and Paul, it hasn't really pushed a lot of heat for this particular match. I'm looking forward to it because I know the actual match is going to be fantastic and there's going to be a lot to it, but that asterisk, like you said, the no DQ aspect is, where is that going to fall in line? Is that no DQ going to help out Roman, or is that going to help out Jay?
Right.
What's going to happen? Who's going to come in? This could be anybody. This family's huge. Like, you could literally bring in
and they brought up the elders.
Anybody. Yeah, they keep talking about the elders, so it's like, where's Rikishi,
I mean, yeah, anybody could end up showing up helping either Jay or Roman, depending on which way they want to have this story go in the direction of whatever they're going with. Interesting to see if Jay ends up winning this title. That's kind of the end of a huge chapter in the Bloodline storyline. Gives out Roman an opportunity to go do what he wants, but
take some time off.
But then what do we do if he doesn't win?
I don't know, and I've been wondering this for a while. I thought when he faced Sami Zayn at the Elimination Chamber, I thought the same thing. Like, what do you do from here? Then he faced Cody. What do you do from here? Now it's Jay. You're going to run out of people. What are we going to do? Jimmy next? Like,
that's the rumor I've heard is that they're trying to wait until WrestleMania 40, this coming up WrestleMania next April, to have Cody and Roman, and have Cody finally dethrone Roman. And exactly how you said, like, how are you going to stretch out this?
I can't wait another 8 months.
Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah. That's not and that's
we're in a 4-year territory
every 4 to 5 weeks. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For a guy who hasn't defended his title in over 100 days, you're going to give me another 8 months of
this?
That's
what I mean. Like, it's a hard sell. So where do you go with this? Because if you don't give Cody the opportunity to dethrone Roman, he's never going to live that down. You know what I mean?
It's weird because he hasn't really talked about it anymore. Well, probably because he's dealing with Brock.
Dealing with Brock. Then he was dealing with Dom, and he was dealing with this, that, and the other thing. And I think we're gotten so far away from it.
Squawk.
But on top of that, we have a few other matches that are potential, because we were looking at it. That's only 4 matches they've announced, and usually they've done about an average of 7 matches per premium live event. We've got a couple.
Yeah, so where does that leave us? What are we missing?
I think we're going to have, obviously, the Trish and Becky is going to be a match at SummerSlam.
She's going to beat Zoe. That's coming up
I don't
this
think
week.
Trish is getting Zoe Stark's name tattooed on her chest as they put a stipulation for this match, which really
I thought it was Becky Lynch was going to get Trish's
whatever, it doesn't matter. Becky's going to get somebody's name tattooed. I just thought it was really kind of a tacky stipulation. It almost felt like Trish Stratus threw that on there, improv, like.
And they just went with it. And they're like, yeah, it'd only be funny if it legit happened and they did some kind of stupid, like, Attitude Era thing where she did get a tattoo of Trish's name across her.
She's really that big of a Trish fan. She's like, oh, yeah, well, I was going to get her name tattooed across my chest anyway, so why don't we just turn that into an angle?
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see Becky end up winning over Zoe Stark and facing Trish at SummerSlam.
Okay.
We also have Bronson Reed, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Ciampa all kind of having a back and forth. They've
interfered in each other's matches.
Shinsuke is kind of looking like a heel run. Bronson Reed is just an absolute powerhouse, and I want to see more of him every single day. So
I love him.
I would definitely see a match between those 3, or a combination, or something of that sort. But I feel like at that point you're adding a lot of 3-ways onto this.
Yeah, you can only do so many for sure. There's also, like, the back and forth between, I don't think it's been officially announced, but Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey.
Right.
I think Ronda mentioned that I'll see you at SummerSlam, but I haven't seen a card for it. She said,
I'm going to do everything I can to get this booked for SummerSlam. See you then. There's, as far as we know, Sunday night, there has been no official announcement that there's been a match. But again, another one that makes sense.
One thing I love in this feud is who's the heel? Like, who are we supposed to hate?
Definitely Ronda.
Yeah, well,
Definitely Ronda.
yeah. I think that's the reason that Shayna's getting over for that is because we all hate Ronda so much that we're even going to cheer for Shayna to beat Ronda.
Shayna went from heat to hype with like a light switch when she attacked Ronda.
It was good. I was actually like, okay, even I'm interested in this.
It's funny because we've always been very critical of Ronda and her storylines, and Shayna as well. She kind of fits in that same moniker, and I feel like this was perfect. I think the WWE did this wonderfully. They made you hate her, and now that she's a face, she's saying everything that we've all said this entire time about Ronda.
Right.
You know, she's a part-timer. She came in without any training.
Right. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here, you know.
And I think it's WWE finally, not finally, but looking into the realistic kind of portion of this.
Why not play into it?
Yeah, okay, people are saying this, 7 out of 10 tweets about Ronda Rousey.
Right. Who might as well run with it.
Yeah, like, let's go with it. Ronda, you're not winning any championships here, trying to be with a popularity contest. But
right.
Let's make you a heel. Let's make your heat real. Look at Dom.
Exactly.
It worked for Dom.
Yeah, it sure did.
It worked for Dom. Like, I hated Dom as a wrestler for the first year because I'm like, oh, it's just Rey Mysterio's kid.
Right.
But now I hate him just because he's Dom.
Exactly, dirty Dom.
It's the same thing with Ronda. It's the same thing with Shayna. I hate Ronda because she's saying everything that everybody's thinking, and she's like, yep. I am that.
Yep, exactly.
And then Shayna's like, yeah, you're a bitch. You're a piece of shit.
What a good way to put somebody over is just by having them hate on the person that we all want to hate on, too.
They turned us. I'm interested in a match for this.
So I think that should also be confirmed. Another thing that they have not officially confirmed yet, but looks like it's going to be, we have the U.S. title, what is that, the finals between the two of them?
Yes, the finals they did 2 fatal 4-way matches.
Yeah, both were great matches. And honestly, when I saw the lineup, I thought this might happen. So I'm of course, a little bit bummed being an LA Knight fan, but Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio both won. Kind of weird to see them both praising each other for winning. So it's going to be interesting to see how.
Nice to see the LWO get some wins, though.
They really deserve it.
It was really a running joke that the LWO never got any wins, and even the older version of the LWO back in the late 90s, early thousands, they always had that stipulation that they always lost. So it's good to see the LWO on top a little bit.
They deserve to win it. So one of them obviously is going to win and face Austin Theory for the United States title. So
I think that's the only reason we haven't said it hasn't been confirmed yet is because they haven't said who's won. Plus, I don't remember them saying whether it was on SummerSlam, but I can't see how it wouldn't be. It's a U.S. title match.
One interesting thing was they already had Austin Theory face Santos Escobar this week in WWE. So
he was having a pissing match with him because because Austin Theory went to interfere and Santos just wanted to keep everything fair. Mm-hmm. And then Austin Theory did the thing he always does and gets an attitude and says, well, I want to fight him.
Yeah, now we've got two faces going off against each other in the same faction. Do you think that Santos Escobar facing Rey Mysterio is going to have any tension within that group?
No, not at all.
They're such positive, happy guys. I think it would be like a raise of an arm. Yay, you did it.
Exactly. I think it's going to be a single match. Rey Mysterio is going to be mad because he doesn't get the win, and yes, I do believe Santos Escobar is going to get the win. I also
do.
But I think it's going to be one of those where he's mad he didn't get the win, but he looks at it and shakes his hand because they have
kind of like a passing
of
the torch thing.
Honestly,
I can't be, my son can't take this from me. I can't really have that relationship with my son. You're kind of like that figure to me. It's what it feels like.
Bring that up. It's funny that you bring up Rey's son. The one thing that was never touched on this week was when Dom was cutting a promo. It's been the first time in weeks he said something, but he mentioned his father. He said if he can't bring home the belt, at least he basically says at least somebody in our family can, and he holds up his NXT title. Do you think that Dominic could be a factor as to why Rey Mysterio might not win against Santos Escobar?
Absolutely. I think that they've done a good job of separating those factions with LW on one side and the Judgment Day on the other. But they have not touched on it really ever since.
But they still have unfinished business between father and son.
I feel like that was a good way to put that so far out of your mind that you almost wouldn't expect it. So when it does cycle back, it makes sense. They could re-spark a feud at any time, and it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that would be a fun way to do it rather than just have that clean win. Something happens some way or another and Rey ends up losing.
Right.
I mean, that could be great.
And
But I also think maybe it could be okay if Santos just gets a clean win.
Oh, of course. I don't think Santos is going to get a dirty win. I don't think he's going to get a win in the sense that he's going to do something.
No
I
way.
think I have a feeling that Dom's going to show up at some point and we're going to see him sway the match one way or the other. We also have a budding rivalry between Bayley and Shotzi. I don't believe this is going to be on the SummerSlam because we're still kind of early in it. Bayley ended up cutting Shotzi's hair off. Shotzi ended up having a mental breakdown in a vignette and shaving her head bald. Come to find out, breaking down the fourth wall, Shotzi's sister was diagnosed with cancer and is going to be undergoing chemotherapy, so she shaved her head in support of her sister. So, of course,
awesome move.
All the love and admiration towards Shotzi and all the love and support towards her sister. Hopefully she has a good recovery and, this all goes well for her.
I think this might actually help Shotzi, though, as weird as that is, because from just a looks perspective,
a little bit more of an edge.
When Shotzi walked out and the first time I saw her, I was like, okay, she looks like somebody that I could hang out with. She looks like she's got a similar likes to what I would like.
Right.
Wrestling wise, I think she falls a little short. Her promos are a little bit short. She's got a lot to work on.
Right.
And there's never been anything crazy interesting beyond the
look.
Punk rock chick. Yeah, exactly. Beyond the look.
Doesn't that speak volumes though, real quick, that doesn't really set triggers off anymore? That the girl with the green hair and the studs and the tattoos, and you're like, oh, you're just one of those girls. Okay.
Exactly. So
20 years ago, they'd be like, oh my God, who's this failure in life? I bet you she does heroin.
Yeah, I know it's just crazy that actually works now and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
That's not even a gimmick in a sense. She just has the tank, that's the only gimmick that she has. So now it's kind of like a broken version of Shotzi. And I think this might actually help her
delete
her character. Yeah. Without it intentionally being meant for that way. I'm excited to see how they interpret her character and have her feuding with Bayley. If it doesn't end up being something at SummerSlam, I think the next couple weeks of building that up could actually be really interesting with the backstage stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
having the scissors through Bayley's bag, and
they could do a lot with this.
Yeah, they really can.
So Tony Khan had a lot on his mind already with the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view on Friday, but before he had that, he had one of AEW Dynamite's most prolific nights of the year, Blood and Guts.
Blood and Guts.
And we saw Blackpool Combat Club taking on Plus Pack taking on the Golden Elite in a 5-on-5 hour-long absolute shit show of a normal wrestling match.
If you've never seen it, it's 2 rings with a cage.
If you haven't seen a match called Blood and Guts, and you're listening to a podcast called Coffee and Wrestling, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
Right?
But this match
This is wrestling on espresso.
Yeah, this match is wrestling with espresso with like 2 shots of whiskey.
Yeah.
They brought out tacks.
We talked about this earlier. Glass.
A bed of nails. A bed of nails, which I did find out there is a bed of nails match. I haven't looked into it, but I'd be interested.
I feel like Jon Moxley just brought that from like his home collection.
Well, not only just that.
Nobody just made that real quick.
Not only just that, but I feel like this is only like a few days removed from finding out that AEW has put out a list of moves and things that are done in a wrestling match that you need to have approval for.
Right, or you cannot do
pile
anymore.
Drivers, chair shots, 450
anything on
splashes,
the apron,
anything on the apron,
anything
table
with
spots,
crowd.
So basically, it's a catch-all so that if you want to do some over-the-top spots, you just got to go into the office and be like, hey, we want to do this crazy spot where this
Tony
dude
Khan
does that.
said it's basically so that the medical staff, the referees, and the wrestlers are all on the same understanding of what's going to be happening.
All right, so
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
They put out a list. It was criticized amongst the internet because they've been doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden,
I think it was fair. It was basically asking permission beforehand, except for Jon Moxley.
But then you, like a few days later, you put 10 of some of your biggest members of your roster in 2 cages with weapons
Yes.
and the intentions that things are probably going to go squirrely.
Oh, and one of the biggest things that they can't do on that list that they need permission to do is blading.
Yeah, John,
Again, so then we do that on Wednesday.
Yeah, immediately. This match was great. Like
They're always great.
I might be biased. I am a 16-year-old Mark, used to love the hardcore matches. I thought that anytime they had ladders, tables, chairs, kendo sticks, stop signs, trash cans, ring bells, the belt, the railings, the apron, falls counts anywhere. That was my thing. Whenever I played SmackDown versus Raw on PlayStation or whatever other game you could play with on PlayStation, I would always be the guy that turns off the DQ. I turn off the count out. I turn off all of that stuff because I'm all about the hardcore stuff. I'm about the chairs and the kendo sticks and the blood and it gets me going.
The pizza cutters?
The pizza cutters, that was new. Nick Gage opened me up a whole new world. Dominoes. I love me some Dominoes. This was a great match. This was a very well put together match. The spots they had, it wasn't as chaotic as other ones have been, which was good.
It was easier to digest. I mean,
they still missed quite a bit, the camera guys, but there was so much going on.
There's at one point 10 guys in these two rings, and even though it seems like a lot of space in between everything, there really wasn't. You've got 5 guys on one side, 5 on the other, and they're pretty much. What was nice was they kind of like stuck with one side.
Right.
So it wasn't constant jumping back and forth between the two rings, which was
gave you like
a lot
either
easier
or to watch.
Adjust, yeah.
Which I believe is it's probably a lot easier to keep track of while you're there because you can see both in your vision and swap back and forth. But yeah, they did a great job. Like they really did. And then the ending was unexpected. I was not expecting Jon Moxley to give up the GOAT and say that we're done.
Especially after we've been talking about this for weeks now on the podcast. Wheeler has just been eating those losses for the BCC.
Right.
Nobody else.
I don't think he had much of it. He didn't have much of a chance on this one, though. I can't really give him the blame on this one.
Literally looked like they were going to kill him.
And if you haven't watched it, Jon Moxley gets handcuffed in between the two rings. And at this point, Takeshita has been taken out by Don Callis. He realized how brutal the match was going and retrieved his protege.
Pac walked out.
Got pissed off at everybody. He's got a history with Claudio, with Moxley. He ended up storming out. So it was down to 3-on-5. Claudio was so up in a raise over Pac leaving, he gets taken out. So it just left Wheeler and Moxley. Moxley gets handcuffed. So now it's a 5-on-1. They wrap a chain around Wheeler's neck and start choking
Wrap it around
him.
the ropes.
And the one thing I did notice with Moxley is he knew that Wheeler would not give up. Like he wouldn't tap. He knew that Wheeler would go until he was lifeless with that chain around his neck. So I think you're right. I think there's something to Wheeler being the quote-unquote weak link in the BCC.
Right.
But I think it also speaks volumes that Jon Moxley knew that if I let him do what BCC says we do all the time, it's going to kill him.
Right.
So he's like, because he wasn't even in distress. He was just handcuffed. He couldn't do anything.
And he was smiling. Like, he was almost smiling at the idea, like you said, that Wheeler was doing exactly what he was trained to do, to bleed and take the sacrifice and to do whatever he had to do to get the win, and he would not.
I think that smile also played into the idea that Jon Moxley knew that the Elite finally bested the BCC.
Right.
They got rid of, there's no Claudio that could do anything. The 2 other members had left. Wheeler was in a compromised position, and they immobilized Moxley. I think he knew that they finally got us. They finally beat us at our own game at a blood and guts match. BCC is like bread and butter. They got beat. Whether you want to call it a clean or whatever it is, because it's a hardcore match or it's an anything goes match, like they finally beat them. And I think that was like the magic of this. And it's like it came to a head, and it may not be over between the two factions.
I don't think
but
so.
I think this chapter has now been over. We might see some individual fallout. We end up seeing Pac and Claudio at Death Before Dishonor. But I think the BCC and Elite rivalry for right now has they've closed that chapter and they've put that book away and we're moving on to something more.
Well, yeah, because they've already got a match set up for Dynamite too. They've got John and Claudio taking on Best Friends and the Lucha Bros. So there you go. It's already like progressing onto a different storyline, and the Elite's going to be doing something different. I'm sure there's going to be interferences and talks and individual matches between everything, but I mean, now I feel like the storyline is just progressing more with what's happening with the BCC, especially with Brian gone.
And even that, if we decide to not do anything from here, it now opens up a time slot for more different storylines to come in, because the Elite's been active since they've came back after their quote-unquote hiatus. Right,
and now the Lucha Bros are in AEW without the tag teams from ROH, so they can kind of delve into more of a storyline in the tag team division. The tag team division in AEW is just next level.
Oh yeah, especially with this blind eliminator tag tournament.
I could have talked the whole podcast about this. Where do we go from here? We have the best pairing of two. Tony Khan, I don't know where you come up with this.
I know.
The best pairing of two wrestlers.
The Acclaimed,
being in
Keith Lee and Swerve.
I loved it.
And now MJF and Adam Cole.
I mean, I don't know where this all came from, why exactly this is happening. I know you have your theories as to why this is kind of happening the way it is.
It's not a theory. It's gonna happen. It's MJF. Come on. You're going to tell me MJF's going to play nice even all the way up to getting the title? There's no way. There's no way. There's no way he's going to be this
well, let's set it up. Let's set it up. So we have
set yourself up for
AEW.
failure. That's what you're doing. You're setting yourself up. He's having you. You're that little goat at the zoo, and he's got the food in his hand, and you're just eating out of his hand.
I'm not eating out of his hand. I just think it's going to go a little bit further than you think it's going to go.
How loud did you pop for that entrance music they came out to?
Oh, I lost my shit the second Adam Cole said, "I've got a second surprise for you." I was like, oh my God, the entrance is going to be mixed. They're going to figure out a way to do it. Shout out to Ruckus. That drop with Adam Cole's words over the MJF. Oh.
So good. I mean, you knew it had to be that.
The shirts and the double clothesline. Of course, I'm eating it up. I love it. But
I wasn't
just
ready
curious.
for that, though. I was not ready for... When I heard the entrance, I was like, okay, we're going to get an entrance song. And then they started playing MJF's music. The second time, I was like, what? That was so good. That got me beyond... It was so good. This
was like,
whole
what was
pairing,
that? What was that?
This whole pairing. I know I've got my fortune tellings of what's going to happen.
Well, we've got FTR.
I've absolutely loved this.
FTR are the AEW tag team champions right now. They are coming off of a feud, which I also don't think is over with, between the FTR and Bullet Club Gold.
No,
I don't
not
think
even close.
we've barely even touched the tip of the iceberg on that one, which is crazy. We've seen that 2 out of 3 falls last week, but they're coming off of that and going into this match with MJF, and Adam Cole. What do you think is going to happen with this match?
I think...
Because this is goofy wrestling at its finest. I mean, they literally stopped to dance.
Right. And FTR came out this week and they cut a promo on MJF and Adam Cole and said, we worked our asses off for these titles. We're the best tag team in all of professional wrestling. And, these guys are out here making a joke about it. They're out here dancing. They're out here, singing songs and playing video games. And we're out here, busting our asses, really working for these titles, being championship material. And I think this is when we're going to see MJF turn. I think MJF's going to start seeing the writing on the wall. He's going to look at himself, and especially after that little bit of a look he gave Adam Cole when Adam Cole went to hand him his AEW World Championship.
Well, and
let's
Adam
not
Cole
forget.
really looked into that belt.
Well, let's not forget
intently.
either. MJF is the AEW World Champion. There hasn't been very little mention of that. All of this blind eliminator tag tournament has kind of blinded us to remembering that he is the top dog in AEW. He holds the most coveted prize in AEW wrestling.
And for a minute, I think Adam Cole forgot about that too, until it was in his hands.
Do you think MJF's going to be okay with sharing the spotlight with another individual? Think of that. His ego is so big. His ego is so big. He is better than you, and you know it. But Adam Cole, is he as good? Is MJF going to be okay with that? That's what makes me think that MJF's going to finally turn.
I can see where you're coming from.
He's going to get there and be like, well, wait a minute, you're not better than me. I'm better than you.
Can he not want another belt?
Of course not.
He's got the AEW. What's wrong with having 2 belts and being a world, a tag team champion and the top guy?
But why would he stoop low enough to have to share a championship? Why does the AEW World Championship, the top dog, the championship that even tag team champions want to have, he's not gonna give a shit about that.
So do you think MJF is gonna be the reason why they don't win this match?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Is it going to be like a great match all the way up until the end?
Yeah.
And then MJF,
it's gonna be
what is he going to do? Walk out?
It's going to be a bang. I don't know. It's something similar to that. Something MJF style. I mean, I guess an interesting thing would be like blatantly getting Adam Cole disqualified. That's what I mean.
Oh no, he had the ring this time.
He's so buddy. He's been so supportive. He's been so in his corner. He's been winning the crowd over. He's won you over. He's won everybody over.
Oh, he's won me over.
Like, don't get me wrong, but in this one instance, he's a good guy. So what better than the biggest heel in all of professional wrestling, the devil himself, to be able to pull that carpet out from underneath you at the one time you think that, like, oh, he's the greatest in the world. Right
when they're about to pull out that double clothesline everybody's been screaming about, and he betrays Adam Cole.
John Cena hits The Undertaker with the belt.
I thought you were going to say John Cena's going to come out.
You know what I mean? The ultimate heel move. The ultimate, I can't believe you did that
for sure.
Just because you're MJF. Because MJF will ruin a pay-per-view just so he can look at you and laugh.
We need to have that actual championship match between Adam Cole and MJF, and
I think that's what this is building up to.
AEW is about to have the biggest pay-per-view that they have ever had, and that's coming up next month.
Who are some of the 2 most over stars that are in AEW
The shirt that they have has only been around for a couple of weeks, and it's the best-selling T-shirt in AEW.
And as of today, All In has sold 75,000 tickets.
Yeah, that's a rumor,
it only makes sense.
But
it only makes sense that's what this is leading up to.
I won't be mad at that.
If we're going to talk about the AEW World Championship, I can't not bring up one of the most polarizing figures in wrestling today, CM Punk. He said on a promo with him and Ricky Starks on Collision that he is the AEW World Champion.
And it's interesting because I was just saying something to you about how it's been a while since he's mentioned, ever since Jay said, I want what's in that bag.
Right.
He hasn't really said anything about it. So now
he's never actually said what was in there either until this week.
Well, he hinted at it, but now he officially said it. And Ricky Starks said he bought like a new Prada bag and he brought it out, and he said my bag's just as empty as your bag, to CM Punk, and that's how all this kind of started. So
because Ricky and him are having this feud because Ricky ended up winning the Owen Hart tournament by holding onto the rope and pinning CM Punk.
Right.
So they were kind of throwing jabs back and forth, and he got real heated about that.
Yeah, he did.
And he also called out Max by name.
Yes.
Said Max doesn't want me to have what's mine.
But how does MJF tie into what's going on with Ricky Starks and CM Punk? Maybe
CM Punk's alluding to he's said something about challenging MJF for that, for the belt, but they haven't really mentioned much about it. Who knows? Maybe they're waiting for this Adam Cole MJF feud to be over, and then they'll.
Perhaps. Just confusing because CM Punk's talking about it. MJF's not acknowledging it in the slightest.
No, nobody said CM Punk's name except for on Collision and the vignettes.
It stays over there,
Yeah. They've done a really good job with Collision. We
really
said it last week, but
it's a different show.
It's a completely different show.
I like how the beginning starts off where it has like these little promos. Even Juice took a second. I keep calling him Juice. Even Jay took a second to shout out the amazing new t-shirts that the Guns have and say, shop AEW.com in his promo, which I thought was just phenomenal.
He said that, but then not too long afterwards, he looked fairly annoyed with the Guns.
He looked fairly annoyed with Austin, but can you blame him?
Yeah.
Austin seems like a lot.
Austin seems like he wakes up and puts a scoop of pre-workout in his coffee.
He probably wakes up and just starts yelling bang bang.
Probably. Probably. I love me some Bang Bang Gang, though.
I do too.
Bullet Club Gold has become one of my favorite factions in
Yeah.
AEW just because of the absurdity of all of them.
Oh, the four of them just work well together, though. It makes sense.
We also got to mention the Acclaimed had a match with House of Black this week. Ended up getting the loss. They were going for the Trios tag titles. Not that them losing to House of Black is, very uncommon. House of Black has been tearing House down.
As they should.
Ever since getting these belts. But at the end of the match, Daddy Ass, who ended up getting his shoulders pinned, took his boots off, stuck him in the middle of the ring. Does that mean we're going to see the end of, the badass Billy Gunn?
I mean, it's been 30 years. If he hypothetically were to say this is the end, could anybody be mad? I mean, look at the things that he's done. Look at the greatness that he's brought to these companies. So even if he puts his boots in the middle of the ring, and that's for sure, that's it. He's not done with wrestling. He's still going to be a big part of, the behind the scenes of AEW and hoping to train, the next batch of people to come into the company. But
I mean, who better to
wrestling,
learn
anything
from?
possible. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I mean, he's probably as over, if not more, than when he was in DX at this point.
It's crazy. People love him.
It's
as
insane.
They should.
He was, I always felt like he was like the third wheel of DX, He was like the guy that was just there, but nowadays it's like, damn, that's Daddy Ass. Like,
right?
He doesn't have to be a part of a faction, and he's just Daddy Ass. He went heel that one day with his two sons when they attacked Paul White, and they've never referenced that ever again. And it's just he
can just do whatever he wants to, and it works.
Yeah, and I mean he's in impeccable shape
great.
for 56, something like that.
59, I think.
Ridiculously good shape for a man his age. So
and he
no,
can still
I
wrestle just as well.
Oh yeah, I couldn't be mad at him putting his boots up on the shelf for the last time. I think it's not that easy. I think
he's got to face his sons.
Oh,
he's got to have something with his sons to.
I don't think we're done with Daddy Ass.
No,
I don't think we're
maybe
done.
Daddy Ass retired, but Billy Gunn sure as hell has some receipts to give out to both of his sons.
He had a lot of laces to take off though. Those are things were like
that poor guy took him a while.
Like, that was
he's probably panicking like shit.
People like chanting, "You still got it," and he's like, "Damn it, I should have been out of the ring by now." And of course, on Rampage, we had the Royal Rampage, which was
the two rings are already set up for the Blood and Guts match. We pull the cage off it. Boom! Now you got the
20
Royal
wrestlers
Rampage.
that came out.
I believe so.
A whole slew of individuals.
Minoru
Darby
Suzuki
Allin, Matt Hardy,
out.
Minoru Suzuki, Butch
and the Blade.
We had Brian
Wayne.
Cage, Nick Wayne, Swerve Strickland, Darby Allin.
Right.
Every
Toa, Khan.
Oh, it was really a good match. Like,
it was fantastic. And again, that's another one that gets so chaotic.
Yep.
I think the year previously in the Royal Rampage, there was, again, a lot of jumping between the rings. This year, they did a really good job of saying, okay, Swerve and Nick Wayne are going to fight for a little bit. Okay, now we're going to go over here, and it's Butcher and, Toa Leona are having something. So it was nice because you had, like, things to focus on.
Right.
And you would come back and they were still fighting the same person.
I don't remember last year if it was the same way, but they would alternate whenever they would come out. This person would come out, they're going to the blue ring. This person would come out, they're going to the red ring. So they would alternate which ring they were going into. And I don't know if that was like a rule that they had set in place that each individuals had to stay in their own respective ring, but they kind of did that to where Toa Leona and Khan both got called into the red ring, so they were both in the red ring and they were fighting Darby Allin and
the
Matt
Butcher
Menard
and the Blade were over on that side too.
But then you had Big Bill and Brian Cage and Swerve Strickland were on the right side with. The only person I really saw was Nick Wayne was going back and forth towards the end, but I think once you get towards the last few guys, it's
you
like
kind of have to, yeah.
So it was nice. It was able to keep it instead of 15 different fights happening in two rings. It was basically two fights happening in two rings.
Exactly.
Or I'm
so
sorry, one
focus.
fight in two rings.
You could focus on one thing and then cut to the other camera on the other ring and it was something else.
And I think they utilized a lot of tag teams and factions so that you had Toa and Khan, they were beating up Darby Allin.
Right, of the Embassy and ROH. Right.
When Butcher and Blade were in, they were beating up Toa Leona. When Brian Cage and Big Bill were in, they've had that tag team for a little bit, so they were kind of not beating each other up, so they'd beat up anybody else. They throw each other back and forth, so they had a good opportunity to take a multitude of people and make them the focus of the camera, instead of having individual 1, individual 2, and then there's 15 people strewn about just trying to like lay on the ground for 5 straight minutes because they're not part of the the TV shot.
Right.
They did a great job with this. They've learned a lot from previous years.
I think so too. And tying in the tag teams and tying in, actual rivalries that are happening within, they always tie those into these big battle royals too. So.
And I mean, they haven't tied into, like we were saying with tag teams, a couple of the same side teams were kind of having a go odds against each other, you know what I mean? Swerve really pissed off a couple of people in this match, Him
and Brian Cage actually had a spot where Swerve, I think, kicked Brian Cage.
He's part of the reason Brian Cage got knocked out. Darby Allin ended up hitting Swerve Strickland.
So now that makes you think what's going to happen with Mogul Embassy. Is that going to turn from that all because of this tag team match? Which, again, when they had the Royal Rampage last year, Swerve and Keith Lee were a big focus of it because they were in the tag team Swerve and Our Glory that was clearly breaking up at that time too.
Yeah, that's when it was like really rough.
Yeah, so they added so much from that after this match, and they've done a good job of that.
Swerve
this year too.
You even said that Swerve's the king of the Rumbles here in AEW.
If you have a battle royal, like, you're stupid not to have Swerve in it.
But all Swerve does is piss everybody off.
Well, he swerves when he drives.
He's so good. He's so good. He just he looks out for himself, and then he just ruins everybody else's day. I love Swerve.
He is the Ricochet, the Dolph Ziggler. He's the guy you bring in, like, when you want somebody to look good. Swerve.
Oh yeah,
Swerve will make anybody look good.
He has no problem making himself look good, though.
Oh, but he also has no problem giving you that, like, back kick, like, mule kick to the face.
Yes.
God, I thought he killed Nick Wayne the other day, but all this Royal Rampage came down to, as we said, Swerve, my dude, and Darby Allin, who took an absolute, of course, ass beating the entire time.
Oh,
you never
awful.
thought, there was never a time where Darby Allin was winning in this battle.
That's what initially, when we were watching it, gave me the inkling that he might win, because he was just... every time the camera would go over to the red ring, he was being thrown around like he was
a rag doll.
Yeah, I mean,
a child.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's what he does best. And the spot at the end when he gets practically powerbombed by Swerve onto the trucks of that skateboard.
That was awful.
That was terrible. I felt that as a 15, 16-year-old kid with a skateboard. I felt that truck going into the lower back and just going, oh my God, and he's yelling. It was just like, there's no way he's faking
It felt
that.
Legit. Like, he's not afraid to take a bump to get a spot. I loved the way that he won, and thank you to Excalibur for quickly clearing it up. I believe Swerve was on the outside of the ring again.
Yes, he got tossed over the top.
He keeps doing this. This is his downfall here in these battle royals, but he's on the outside on the apron, and Darby Allin does a tope suicida and knocks him out, which he goes under the rope,
under the top
over
rope.
the rope.
Right.
So even though he touched
and
second,
the rule is,
and
AEW does this a lot, you have to go over the top rope and then to the apron to be eliminated. You can go under the rope, you can go through the ropes, but once you go over the top rope and then you touch the apron, you're done. So they played off that rule. He hit that tope suicida, dove through the ropes, and was able to bring him down, even though they both landed at the same time.
Right.
Swerve gets the out, and Darby gets the win.
Yep. And I think what they said was he would get a shot at the TNT Championship, not naming who that person would be, whether it be Christian Cage or Luchasaurus.
Yeah, it depends.
And I think it's going to be happening in All Out. I don't know. I shame on me for not double checking.
Well, I mean,
that's the case.
We do have 2 huge pay-per-views coming up with AEW. We've got All In, which is reportedly 76,000 people sold. It's not been
Wembley,
confirmed, but
it's outside. It's going to be completely different vibe than any of these other shows really have had. It's going to be kind of more of a tie back to like Daly's Place that used to be outside in Jacksonville.
I know, but it's going to make Daly's Place look like
anything like that. Yeah,
like a pocket poly set.
I mean, think about Orange Cassidy coming out in the dark. Like his one little firework, the pew.
We also have All Out is going to be the following weekend, so you've got 2 huge pay-per-views. Yes. Coming up with AEW, and
it's the biggest one of the year, and now they're doing All In again.
Right. So I mean, they got a huge load on their plate,
and no matches announced.
Not a single one.
But so many great champions that you can really put so many different things together and have that happen. And Tony Khan said, obviously, he's not afraid to work with other companies. So I've sat there for weeks and thought about who within AEW or ROH would be fun to see in All In.
Or even Stardom.
I mean, that's what I mean. We can talk about different companies. Like, I know you've alluded to this for several weeks, and I don't want to act like this is my idea, but this maybe could be where Bullet Club Gold and Bullet Club War Dogs finally have that match in a huge capacity like this, where it's not Forbidden Door, it's not just a Dynamite.
The only problem with that is you've got the G1 Climax going right now.
They do,
and
but
you got both War Dogs in the G1, which we have not kept up with that. I got to admit, past week has been pretty busy, but that's going to be on this week's things to do is catching up with the G1 Climax. I haven't even looked at the results yet. I don't
want to know. I want to watch it.
Yeah. So hopefully Eddie is winning all of these.
Of course.
That's who my money, not my money is on. That's who my heart is set on to win this one.
Oh yeah, Eddie, Will, got some guys out there that I definitely hope take the whole thing. But at the end of the day, I mean, Eddie all day. Right. So again, there were so many amazing things to cover this week. Didn't have the time to cover absolutely everything.
So go back and just watch it. You don't need us to watch it.
I mean, yeah, you don't. Yeah, exactly. You don't
Thank
need
you
us to
for joining
cover
us, though.
everything.
I
We really appreciate you.
Always welcome to.
If you haven't already, make sure you follow us at CAW Wrestling Pod on Twitter. We're gonna go over really quick the matches that we know of so far that are happening next week. I'm gonna start off with the matches happening on Dynamite because of the Royal Rampage ending that happened between Darby Allin and Swerve Strickland. They will be having a one-on-one match,
which they always put on a good show.
Oh, of course. Now, you want to talk about being excited about a match? This has got me absolutely hyped. There is my favorite wrestler right now is AR Fox. He's the absolute man. So when Darby Allin said that he wanted AR Fox to have an opportunity at Orange Cassidy's belt, I got really super excited for that. And that is going to be happening for the AEW International Championship on Dynamite. We also have Britt Baker taking on Taya Valkyrie. Nice to see Britt Baker coming back into
Britt had
just the singles division.
She had a match against Kayla Sparks on Wednesday, got that win. Taya had a match against Sky Blue on Rampage, which was a great match between the two of them. She ended up winning over Sky Blue, got on the microphone. Very winded when she was on the microphone, but she ended up challenging Britt Baker to a match this Wednesday.
If you know, you know. We have Pac versus Gravity.
Give you a little bit of insight. Anybody who doesn't understand this, it took me and Jamie a minute. There's a series of videos out about Pac called the man that Gravity forgot.
Yeah.
And now there's a luchador named Gravity who is Bandito's brother in AEW. So they went with that joke, and so now Pac and Gravity will be having a one-on-one match on Dynamite.
Gravity, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, right.
Best of luck to you in your future endeavors.
John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli will be taking on the Lucha Brothers and the Best Friends in a triple threat tag match, because Best Friends and Lucha Brothers were beefing, and then Lucha Brothers and PCC were beefing. The BCC doesn't like anybody, so
Death Triangle is back together, which is fantastic.
Yep. So I don't believe that's going to end in a clean match, and I think the Best Friends are just going to be cannon fodder for these two teams. Unfortunately, not that they don't have a chance against these two other teams, but
just taking the brunt of the aggression from everybody else.
Right.
Over on Collision, we're going to be having the match of the week, I'm sure, when we see FTR taking on Adam Cole and MJF.
Oh,
for the
I will
tag
be
team
glued to the TV for that one.
Also, let me say it correctly just in case you don't know how to pronounce. Andrade El Idolo taking on Buddy Matthews in a ladder match for Andrade's mask,
which House of Black stole a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Andrade has been very, very adamant about getting it back. It represents him, his family, his everything.
The security stopped him from actually interfering in the match that
they wouldn't even let him in the building.
Yep.
And then we also have El Hijo del Vikingo, Action Andretti, and Darius Martin will be taking on Juice Robinson and the Guns, which I guess, I don't know why we wouldn't just call them Bullet Club Gold, because
it makes it easier than the Guns.
Over on WWE on Raw, we're going to be seeing Tommaso Ciampa versus Bronson Reed, which I'm sure Shinsuke Nakamura will have something to do with that, because these three have been at each other's throats for the past 3 weeks.
Sure, that's going to be an absolutely fantastic match, though. Over on SmackDown, the winner between or is going to be determined between Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar, like we said earlier. So I'm sure there's going to be something happening there. And like you said, possible speculation of maybe Dum Dum.
Dum Dum. Condom. Dom Com. No, not Dom Com.
No.
And then we also will be seeing Karrion Kross will be taking on Carl Anderson for whatever reason. Hopefully it's something to set up for something for both of these guys because they're not doing anything.
I always forget about Carl and Luke.
Yes. Yeah, they got rehired by WWE, and in their contract, they basically said, if you're not using us, let us go home. Mm-hmm. So they haven't been on TV. They must be
building something if they're just having a singles match here.
I mean, but what a cushy-ass job. Like, we don't need to be in an angle. We don't need a championship, but if you need us to feud with The New Day, with a feud with Pretty Deadly, to feud with Brawling Brutes, bring us in. We'll do our 6 to 8 week program, go to the premium live event. When we take the loss, we're gone. Have a good day and call us in 2 more months when you need us. Like, what a cushy ass job for a well-paying job like that.
Those guys are clearly all about the money. So.
Oh yeah, they've specifically like made that wide open. Now I do want to preface what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Like a bug. Preface what I'm about to say, that what I'm about to say has some spoilers for SummerSlam, but maybe not spoilers. So if you don't want to hear anything behind the fourth wall, if you don't check out the dirt sheets, go ahead and skip for like the next minute and a half. But rumor has it that we might see Bray Wyatt come back and thwart a face superstar's win in a match.
At the pay-per-view or something coming up? A face's opportunity to win, and Bray Wyatt would come in and
the way
interfere
that the way that it was it read was that his plans are for him to come back during SummerSlam to interfere in a match, a high-profile star, and ruin their match.
Okay.
That's the rumor, is that we will finally see the return of Bray Wyatt. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but...
And sometimes it's true, and sometimes they're just way off. You just never know what's going to happen with that. But any speculation in your mind as to who that could be?
There's one, and I'm thinking Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
I'm thinking you have Bray Wyatt come back, you feud with Cody Rhodes, and it gives... Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I don't know why I thought Santos Escobar.
Okay. That's...
Santos, Austin Theory. Austin Theory can keep his...
Out of left field, but 100%.
It was just the first person that instinctively just jumped into my head.
All right, but if you tune back in at this point, we're done with the spoilers. We won't bring it up again. I try not to bring spoilers up on the podcast. I just thought it was kind of an interesting aspect to put out there.
I don't like to read them as much because sometimes I feel like it sways your opinion of what's going to naturally occur.
Right.
I don't think it changes anything.
This wasn't an official release by Fightful or anything like that. This was a tweet put out by somebody who has been right more times than they've been wrong about certain rumors that they've put out there.
So vague.
I try not to read into them. Like you said, I try not to read into them to let them sway.
Yeah, sometimes they're so wrong.
Just being part of the wrestling universe, it's hard to not see them.
All right, friends, that's going to wrap up everything that we would like to cover for the week. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you go over to Twitter and follow us at CAW Wrestling Pod. We do our absolute best to try to cover everything AEW, ROH, WWE on their weekly shows, pay-per-views, and premium live events. But, I mean, come on, we got a life, too.
There's a lot of wrestling out there nowadays. We're watching wrestling. It's surprising. We went from, when we started this podcast, we went from watching AEW wrestling, and there was only Dynamite. Then they put out Rampage. Then we started catching up with WWE. And then the ROH started being a thing.
Yep.
Started catching up with that.
Now it's Collision.
Collisions come out. We've delved into New Japan. I have subscriptions to DDT Pro. We have subscriptions to Noah. We have just... It's the amount of wrestling we watch is immense.
And it's out there, and it's absolutely tremendous. All of it is just so good.
But we do live tweet anytime that something's on, so please follow us at CAW Wrestling Pod on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter as well, at Gunk Dudley.
And I'm at a Bacon Party.
Start your week every Monday with a fresh episode of Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you in the next episode. you've listened this far, you've listened to the longest episode of Coffee and Wrestling, a wrestling podcast, and just wanted to give you thanks, man. Really appreciate that.